and welcome to another episode of the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast with me, Karen Maloney. Joining me this week is Janine Schuller. And Janine is a Sangoma, which is an African shaman. And Janine was initiated by her Zulu tribe back home in South Africa. She acts as a bridge between her clients and their ancestors to deliver messages, healings, and provide a tribe for their support. Janine is a believer that everybody is born with intuition and certifies healers to spread the word and help others. Her added passion is teaching clients how to understand their own unique energy and how to create a healthy relationship with their ancestors or guides and themselves in order to flow courageously in life. Janine shares lots of information in this podcast, both a little bit about her background and how she eventually gave in and decided to follow her calling to become a Sangoma, which was very different for her. And trusting that and going back to her hometown in South Africa to meet her Zulu tribe and be initiated. Janine also shares lots of tools and techniques and how we can start to connect and build a relationship both with ourselves and our ancestors. And she talks as well how it's vital that we live a high vibrational life in order to be in alignment with our true selves, to be able to know the difference between ego and actually our higher self talking, but then also so we can be in alignment with our ancestors as well and hear the messages from them. And developing this aspect is also vital in order to help us to overcome the challenges and changes that happen as we go through an awakening process. Janine works under the name Gentle Warrior, so you can find her on Facebook under Gentle Warrior or yourgentlewarrior.com. Janine, you're very welcome and thank you for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really pleased and happy to be here.
Yeah, we'll see what way the conversation goes. You are a Sangoma, which is an African shaman, and I'm definitely going to come back to that and have you explain. But you also help clients and people to understand energy and their own unique energy. And I think that might be an interesting place to start, seeing as just before we were due to record, you got a massive cough and a clearing in your throat chakra. So obviously there's a lot of good information to flow through you today, which I'm excited to hear. But maybe explain a little bit, about energy for anyone who may not know, or how we are all energy.
Sure. Well, the coughing fit was because I did a little ceremony with the ancestors just before we connected, and I'd asked them to flow through me and, speak through me any messages they wanted to pass on. And that brought on this big clearing of a coughing fit through my throat. So obviously to clear my channel so that they can come on in. But I'm a big believer of naturally clients that come to see me because they've got energy blockages, or they're feeling depressed or anxious, or they just don't even have the energy to get off the couch. My style really is more the way of teaching people to understand their own energy. So I like to use our ancestors to, not use sounds terrible, but I like to work with our ancestors to tap in and find out, well, what is causing this energy to be sluggish, this person's energy to be sluggish, and what do they need to do? What do they need to take away and to keep doing to keep their energy up? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we tend to have this life where we go to doctors and we ask for this magic pill, and then we want and expect to feel better. And it's, I suppose, in a way, it's like going to a doctor expecting to feel better, but not doing what the doctor says. Yeah. So I feel, you can go see people and they can take things from you. They can take these blockages. They can remove things from you. But ultimately, if we don't learn how to understand our own bodies and our own energy and the things that are making us feel horrible and making us feel sluggish, then it's going to keep coming back until we learn that lesson. Yeah. So I'm more into the belief of making people self-sufficient.
Yeah. Love it. And it's something that's been mentioned time and time again on different podcasts, just about that, or self-responsibility, stepping up for ourselves, self-discovery, self-awareness, really getting to know ourselves and what works for us versus someone else, because we are all individual. So that's really interesting and I love that. So tell us a little bit, you've got a beautiful accent. So tell us about what is a Sangoma, first of all. And, is it something that you were born into or called to, or how did you come to this work?
Well, this is a very weird one for me. And I suppose others to understand as well. I am South African, Cape Town born, and I lived there for 27 years before moving to London, and now my home here in beautiful Ireland. And I grew up in a time of apartheid. When I was still in high school, there was still very much Nelson Mandela was a bad man. He went to prison. That's what we were trained. So I didn't know anything about the Sangoma culture at all. And a Sangoma is an African shaman. We are the natural healers. And I didn't know anything about Sangomas because they can be found in the Zulu, Xhosa, and other tribes. And it wasn't safe to know anything about that. So it was really strange for me. It's something you are born with. And what makes it even more strange is, traditionally Sangomas are black. They're the tribesmen, they're the Zulus, they're the Xhosas. They were back in the days of the tribes, where the same as where you have your shamans, you would have your medicine man, your medicine lady. And that's what a Sangoma is. It's the medicine person of the tribe. So it can still be seen as even for South Africans weird that there's more and more white people that are becoming Sangomas, and that's our calling. So I was training to be a shaman here in Ireland, and the calling happened through a journey that I went on, and I was standing in a shamanic fire, all happy dancing, and when I stepped out, I was covered in these multicolored beads, and I had all these Zulus and Xhosas dancing around me, and I was like, what is going on? And my mentor at the time said, oh, you're a Sangoma. I was like, what is that? So it was a big shock for me to have to go home to answer my calling, because with the Sangoma side of things, with many other cultures as well, if you don't answer your calling, you will get very, very sick. And I did get very, very sick until I went home and met my Zulu tribe and started my ceremonies. And every year I go home for ceremony.
Wow. And how long? You said you got really sick. What happened? Or how long was that period that you kind of ignored or chose not to go back home? And then how did you know which tribe? Are there many, or is there just one in general, or how did that happen?
Okay, so I ignored my calling several times. I ignored it when I was still in the corporate world, and I worked for an amazing company, love them, as a vendor manager and a project manager. And, I would go and see healers myself and readers because from my 20s, I've been involved and interested in this world. And I've had dreams from when I was a child. I've had spirits trying to reach out to me and talk to me from the age of 6. My family have taken me to see specialists when I was a child because they thought I was going insane. So I was always warned that this is going to happen. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You say that to all your clients. Which I find quite funny because I have my clients saying the same to me now. Yeah, you probably say that to everyone. I'm like, yeah, not really.
No.
I ignored it for a long time, and then probably I ignored it for a good 2 years before I was getting stronger warnings of if you don't start using your hands and your gifts, you're going to get sick. Then it got to a point in the corporate world one day, I got severe bronchitis and it would not go away. I was back on the asthma pump. I used to be asthmatic of it as a child, and I didn't have it, since my 20s. And it got really bad. I was on asthma pump. Every step I took, I could barely walk. And then I think it took my boss to say one thing to me in a meeting, and she wasn't even rude. And I just cracked and I sobbed uncontrollably. Went to the doctors, and the doctors were putting you on antidepressants. And I was like, I'm not depressed. And my doctor was like, you've been sick for 3 months like this, and you can't breathe. So I didn't go on the antidepressants, but I knew that I had to leave the corporate world. And I think after that, think my ancestors were pleased that I listened to them and I left the corporate world. But when my proper calling started to become a Sangoma, I went through probably a good year. And that sickness would be anxiety, depression coming full stream, dreams, really vivid dreams. I thought I was losing my mind at the best of days. Shortness of breath, dizziness, it goes on and on.
Wow. I love that you say, you didn't understand automatically what was happening, and even saying you felt like you're losing your mind. I think that's very real for anyone, I think, who's connecting back to, I believe, that true essence, that soul, that spirit that's within us all, that when you are called to something different, it is kind of scary because you're like, what the hell is this? So what helped you through it? And then how did you know what tribe?
So the first one is what helped me through it. Well,
yeah.
I had no one. At that stage, I had left London, where I had quite a lot of my family were in London still. And I knew not a single person here in Ireland. So I really thought I was going mad because I knew no one. I left my support network at home. I was lucky that I got to meet a hairdresser who was actually very spiritual. And so she was my sounding board, and it was like going to a confession. Wow. I would just be like, everything would come out. And then I also met a great reader, and she gave me some books to read. And I started doing a lot of self-work, just a lot of research and using the cards and connecting, just using intuition to figure out how to connect to my ancestors. And then that's why I created Gentle Warrior, so that nobody ever has to go through that on their own, because it is horrible. And the only people I knew were business people, and I can't go to this new company I joined and said, do you know that I can see dead people? Just did it.
It's like a movie. What was that movie again? I see dead people. Sixth Sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And then how I met my tribe. It's actually really synchronized. I am not a natural flow person. And that's why I swear I'm not.
That's why you were so sick?
I'm an ex-project manager. That's why it's taken me so many years to create the course I'm running this month, which is Flow with Life, which I keep laughing that I finally flow now, but it's taken most of my life to get to this point.
I feel a bit the same. I was event manager for years and totally just lived in my head.
Gosh, like if it's not tangible, it's not out there. Yeah. It's as simple as that was my philosophy back then.
What you're saying as well is making me laugh inside. I'm like, oh, I know exactly where you're coming from. Yes.
I went to my then mentor for a session, and I told him, look, I'm going to South Africa. He knew I was anyway, because I'd gotten so sick that I tell myself I have no choice. And when I say that, people say, I thought that we have a choice. And I'm like, yeah, the ancestors are clever. We're one of the only places in this galaxy, in this universe, that has the gift of having a choice. Yeah. So, I have a choice. I can choose to do the work and follow my calling, or I can choose to be sick for the rest of my life and potentially die from it. So, there's a choice, but which choice are you going to go for at the end of the day? Yeah. And that's where many healers fall short, is when they don't follow that. So I did. I tested my ancestors several times, and they responded to both my tests. And then I went to go and see my mentor for a session. And I said, I keep landing up at Dublin Airport. My flights are now booked. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. I keep having the dreams. They call my flight and I wake up and I can't see a single thing. I'm using the last of my savings from the corporate world to go to a country I haven't been to in 10 years, to face people that I've known since high school, my family even, that are going to think I've lost the plot when I tell them I'm a Sangoma, because Sangomas are seen as witch doctors by my upbringing, like just evil. And I don't know what to do. And he tapped him and he saw a huge Zulu chief. And he said, well, Janine, the Zulu tribe are claiming you. The land is ready. Just go. And he said, by the way, he had gone to South Africa and he was like, I have met a Sangoma. Her name's Tembi. Yeah, she's on Facebook. He gave me his phone while I sat there in the session, and he was like, just write this. And I was typing, private messaging her, and then we became friends. And then
Amazing.
I was in South Africa for 2 weeks, with people going, why are you here? And me going, I don't know. And I had 1 week left, and Tembi managed to meet up with me. And the first thing she said to me was, my mother was wondering what you were going to think about the fact that I am Zulu and not Xhosa. And I said, but it's the Zulu tribe that have claimed me. And the reason that's so odd is because the Zulus are in KwaZulu-Natal and the Xhosas are in Cape Town. And she's from KwaZulu-Natal, but I'm Cape Town based. So I still don't know why the Zulus have claimed me and not the Xhosas, to be honest. But that's
maybe that'll be revealed at some other stage down the line.
Well, I know, and it is quite... It's an interesting, the tribes are so different, so it's really interesting because the Xhosas are thinkers. They are known to think things through before putting actions in place. Where the Zulus, you look at the history of Shaka Zulu, the Zulus are warriors, but they're not the kind of warrior that I promote through Gentle Warriors. The Zulus, they pick up the spear and they're off to war. They act. They're full-on warriors. So I was told when I became a head Sangoma, I was told by my tribe, you are the rule breaker. You are the one who's going to look at things differently, and the ancestors are okay with you working with some new techniques and stuff and changing things a bit, but keeping and honoring our tradition. And I guess that's where I'm bringing in the gentle warrior aspect is I don't believe as Zulus we have to go run into battle. I do believe we need to come from a gentler side within instead of just going to fight the war.
Wow, fascinating. I love it. But I love it as well, even the few things you mentioned, there's no such thing as coincidence. And when we begin to, you were saying, kind of connecting to ourselves and our inner truth and that essence, everything is placed in front of us, like all those synchronicities, like your hairdresser. And then, a woman with books, like we think we're so alone, but there's always little signs and clues. But again, they seem so ridiculous that you're like, what, really? But it's that trusting, that going with it, that flowing, getting into that flow. And allowing. So that's really interesting. And how do you view that? Do you view things as coincidence or all perfectly aligned? Or
I do believe that I believe in two things really. I do believe that things that are synchronized and we are guided to be where we are meant to be. But I also believe that we can alter our future. And I say that because I feel that when people come to me for readings, I keep saying I'm not psychic or fortune teller, and I keep telling people it's almost like when we get messages and when we get dreams, we get like heads ups and alarm bells, and we can change that. Ultimately I believe that we can change it. And also I think that in the spirit, I completely believe in synchronicity, absolutely, but I believe we need to be careful about it as well, like about the term of it sometimes, because I hear clients that have said to me in the past, like, oh, it's okay if I go and walk down there, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I'm just like, well, that's really dangerous. That's really dangerous. Well, like, if shit's going to happen, it's going to happen. Excuse my language. And I just think to myself, well, we shouldn't then just go and put ourselves in dangerous situations because if it's destined to be, it's destined to be. So I get a bit nervous if people get mixed up with destined to be and synchronicity. Because synchronicity is alignment. Like synchronicity is when we have focus. Synchronicity is when we are asking our ancestors, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. We are asking for a goal that is from pure intent from our heart, for our highest good. And then doors start to open. Destiny, people get mixed up with synchronicity. And that's when they think, well, I can go down this dark alley because, well, if I'm meant to be mugged or raped, then so be it. And I think that's dangerous. No,
I totally agree. And you mentioned it there as well. And I think the same, that it's synchronicity is that true alignment. You're in tune, you're listening, you're not just mindlessly going around going, oh, well, whatever, what will be, what'll happen will happen. It's coming from that more, again, that inner connection, that alignment, that truth, that consciousness flowing through us, connecting to that and moving with it. So you've spoken about ancestors a lot. So tell us about the ancestors and how they communicate with you. And when you mention ancestors, because obviously we all have ancestors, and it's phenomenal how interconnected we all are. When you mention ancestors, are you talking about the collective or your own individual ancestors, or how does it work?
I'm talking about both because, again, when I have clients come to me, they say, oh, so does that mean you can see my grandmother or my grandfather or my mother or my father that has passed? And I can't. I have on occasions. But when I talk about ancestors, it goes beyond just our bloodline, because we get those like soul group ancestors, so to speak, as well. Like maybe somewhere way down my generation, I do have Zulu in me because I now work with Zulu ancestors. Maybe in my heritage way down, that has happened, but not any that I can trace. And so the Zulus are still my ancestors through, collective gathering as well. So it's the bigger picture. And I look at ancestors way down past lives, not just this life. So we gather them as we go along.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's how I look at our ancestors. So when I call on ancestors, I'm always calling those that are in heaven that love, know, and respect me. Because we have ancestors down our bloodline, down our line in general, that are tricksters, and we all do, no matter how lovely and sparkly we are, we do. So we have to be really careful when we call them who we are referring to. We only want those that have our highest good at heart.
True. And then how to
work with my ancestors. Okay, so ancestors, I'm very firm on this because I've had to learn this the hard way. So trust me on this one. The ancestors, it's that you don't just call them when you're wanting some good luck. It's not like rubbing Buddha's belly or something. If you are wanting a strong relationship with your ancestors, then it's like being in partnership. It's like being in a relationship. If you were with a partner and you just rang them up every time you wanted something from there, that relationship is not going to go far. It's not going to become this beautiful gem. It's going to wither and it's not going to grow. So the ancestors is something that you work with on a daily basis. And the ancestors is a mutual relationship. And we have to be careful because the ancestors can work us hard. So we do have to have boundaries with them. We really do. As well as we can work our ancestors too hard as well. So it really is a case of respecting our ancestors enough to know when we're going overboard that we need to do something they enjoy as well. And that's when we have to just honor them as well. Like at the moment, as you and I are talking, I call on my ancestors. When I had my coughing fit, I use Hempepu. Hempepu is an African muti, like bush, it grows. And I like that, and it connects it to my ancestors stronger. And I've got a white candle lit in front of me now, and that's to honor them. And I've left some money there for them. Now, trust me, I have an ancestor called Veronica. She's a Zulu, and she likes her money. So when I want to speak I leave the money, and she's gone from coins to notes, which is really cheeky, but she gives me a lot, so I give her a lot. And I have my lucky bean from South Africa that I've left out for them, and some snuff, which we call taxi. So I honor them, and they like it when I dance. So every now and again I dance around my kitchen and I dance with them.
Oh, love dancing. So good. Glad your ancestors like it too. It's just so fascinating. And then for you, how do you get the messages? Like, do you get actual words? Do you get images? Do you get feelings? Do you get sensations? Is it a mix of everything, or?
Is this for my messages?
Yeah.
The way I do my stuff? Yeah. Mine is dream time.
Dream time.
Okay. Or any alternate state. So if I put myself in a meditative or journey state, where I'm getting out of my head, I'm getting out of ego, and I'm going into a state of being in my heart. So for me, if I'm grounded and I'm coming from a good heart space, then I will get messages. But for me, it's a lot of times in dreams. So as Sangomas, that is where we get most of our messages. And then we tend to find trends in our dreams, and every Sangoma would be different. So I'm a I'm a huge cat person. I have 4 indoors and 3 outdoors. So cats feature large in my life. So my most of my lapper, which is the cloth that we use as Sangomas, most of my lapper would have the cat on it because it's a representation of my power. So in my dreams, I found it really intriguing. When the ancestors are speaking to me, they will show me cats. Okay, so I will be a cat. Now I'm always in my dreams a ginger cat. Which is one of my cat's Peaches. It always looks like her. And then when I see a black cat, that's my Sangoma mother Tembi. So my dreams are very animal based. So when the dogs come, the dogs for most Sangomas will be the ancestors. So depending on the behavior of the dog, they're telling you what to do. So when they're telling me to go home for ceremony, the dogs will be eating a lot of meat. They will be hungry. You know, they will be skinny, they'll be needing fattening up. And then I'm getting the warnings, like the alerts, like you need to go home, you need to go to ceremony. You know, if my Sangoma mother Tembi is in trouble, there'll be other animals attacking her. And I know I need to step up and help her, or my tribe is in trouble. So that's how I get most of my dreams. When you wake up from these type of dreams, you just know that wasn't a dream. And you can tell the difference as well, because even in my dreams, I'll be telling myself, like a dream within a dream, I'll be going, Janine, you need to remember this isn't a dream.
Interesting.
But you have to set the intent to get your dreams, whether you're a Sangoma or not. You know, you can't just go to bed, they're not talking to me, you know?
Yeah.
You need to set your intent at night as well.
Intention is powerful. And I suppose talk to us a little bit like that, because although, you know, you're explaining how you get your messages and the way, you know, the ancestors help you in your life, but you then teach others because you believe everybody is born with this intuition and kind of this support, whether from ancestors or from other dimensional beings, whatever word resonates with them. So, you know, to make it a bit more tangible as well, how can people start to connect in or resonate with their higher self or their ancestors or whatever works for them to get that guidance and support that can flow through them here then in this kind of physical 3D world?
So ultimately, when people come to me, they're wanting to find out what I call how to be courageous, as in how to face the fears and how to get their messages from themselves and from their ancestors. And it's taken me quite some time to almost see a program, a flow, which again came from my ancestors and was developed individually. And when you look at it as a bigger picture, it's just like, oh my God, this makes complete sense. So the way that I train people is, in order to lead a courageous, intuitive life, let's call it that, you need to be able to you need to be able to have a bond and a relationship with your ancestors. So I train people about building a stronger bond with with ancestors using different muti. Muti is just medicine. Like I use African muti, but I start showing them how to use some medicine that they can get their hands on here. So it's building that bond, because and that takes a lot of work. That's a whole day of because it takes so much work to get to the stage of trusting your ancestors, you trusting them, and them trusting you, and then knowing that no matter what happens, no matter when you feel alone, they've got your back. So even starting, if I give you even one tip on the ancestor front, like clear the room, as in have some sage, burn some sage, clear any negative energies, ground yourself, even with it be standing outdoors on Mother Earth, breathing and just focusing on your hands. Drop into your heart space, whether that be a simple technique of imagining a feather in your head, and as you do nice, deep belly, slow breaths, feel that feather drop into your heart. Light a white candle. I run a whole candle magic course, which is way too intense. Just start with a white one. That's the one you really need to know about in the beginning. Light a white candle and just call on them. Leave them gifts. Like I said, I use the money, you leave them tobacco, leave them a shot of vodka, leave them tea, anything like that, and start talking to them, and because by now I know my ancestors really well. So I would say, to start off with, you would want to be saying like for me, I'd go, I'm Janine Schiller, I am your daughter, and I am daughter of, and I'd mention my mother's name, and then I'd mention my father's name, so I'm covering both my lines, both my bloodlines. And I would start talking to them, and I'd hold regular, just even those little ceremonies with them. And even just staring into the candle while you're calling on them, because that puts you into a hypnotic, into another state as well, and see what answers come. And it takes practice, so you need patience with this. The second thing you really need is a relationship with yourself, okay? Yeah. If you don't trust yourself, then you're not going to know whether it's ego talking to you or your higher self, your soul, whatever you want to call it, is talking to you. So you, again, need to be grounded and in your heart space in order to get those answers. The key, the tip I'm going to give to you, and this relates to ancestors as well as the higher self, to your soul. And that's ultimately intuition, is the connection between you and your soul, and to get your messages, is to lead, and again, this is daily commitment, lead a high vibrational life. Okay.
Yeah, love it.
Whatever you think, eat, talk, drink, it needs to be high vibrational to get your messages.
Yeah, completely.
The keys are definitely ancestors and intuition would be the two main keys. And then you need to know how to get over challenges and hurdles and obstacles, change, because life changes. Because as you're going to build your relationship with your ancestors, and as you're going to build your relationship with yourself, you're going to awaken yourself. Like tenfold, you're going to awaken yourself. Heads up, guys. Maybe I should have given you that warning first. No. Heads up. You're going to awaken yourself and start to ascend, which means that you are going to be thrown challenges and you are going to be given more and more change. So you need to develop techniques and ways of getting and support in getting through these challenges easier. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. And then find your tribe.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love how you say as well, like, it does take practice. It is daily, consistent work. You know, once you start awakening, leading a high vibrational life is so crucial. Like, again, it comes back to that thing of, you know, we're all energy, and where we're vibrating is what we're attracting more of. And again, it comes back to what you said earlier of being in alignment, and how we do have the ability to change, you know, situations and outcomes for ourselves as well. You know, when you were talking about synchronicities, and that is powerful. Like, even epigenetics, the study of how we can influence our genes and genetic expression through our environment. And like you say as well, that high vibrational, through our food, our thoughts, our emotions, or like if we're dancing or not, like every single thing has an influence, and we can become the conscious creators of our lives. And it's getting into that alignment and attunement, and realizing that we have that power to influence our genes and our inner environment, which then expresses on our external environment. So it's fascinating. So maybe talk to us a little bit more about that awakening journey. And again, there's a lot of fear. It's practice. It's stepping into the unknown, because you're like, what the hell is happening? You know, what's going on? Have I lost my mind? That's a question I've asked myself a couple of times. But again, the more you do it, and like you're saying as well, having that relationship with your ancestors or higher self or whatever it is for you, you learn to trust and surrender and be like, okay, no, actually, this is real. You know, so I loved your little video again about change and challenges, because it's something we all face, you know, no matter what. Like, that's a part of life. So what are some of the tools that we can, I suppose, how can we learn to navigate it better as well?
So like you said, and rightfully said, change and comes with the challenges, and our lives change. And I find that with the awakening, like the changes and the challenges come even faster. So we need to develop ways in order to get through those changes faster. And what happens is, through using tools and techniques, it doesn't mean that you're going to prevent change from happening.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's important. Yeah, you know? We can't.
Yeah, because we grow and develop. Our soul grows and develops through change. So we cannot prevent it. But what we can do is we can overcome it more courageously and easier. And then the beauty of it, all the changes and challenges, they do start coming faster because we're growing more and ascending more.
Yeah.
But we learn to overcome them faster. So the thing with change is, and especially with challenges, last year was an horrendous year. And I had 2 miscarriages in 1 year, and it put me through so much trauma.
Yeah.
Amongst other things that were coming up, it was just, there were days when I thought I'm actually just not going to get out of bed. Like, I'm not even going to show up.
Yeah.
And really the things that kept me going was learning techniques like, I'm not an EFT tapping, I don't even know, practitioner or anything.
Yeah.
I just had to YouTube, Google these things. But it was even like placing my hands over my heart and using pressure and rubbing my heart deeply and using affirmations with that, saying like, I am strong, I am courageous, and I am mother, because ultimately I did have to tell myself I am mother. And I do believe I'm mother. I am mother of many beautiful things out here, and mother to many in respect. So I find that using your senses is probably key as far as techniques go.
Yeah.
If you use your smell, like for me, I would use, if you're really needing to get into your heart, things like rose, the smell of rose is amazing. For me, I use rosemary and peppermint because they just blast through the fogginess that you go through in trauma. That's my personal favorite. And then if you look at touch, like I was saying, the rubbing, the tapping, it makes you feel like you are back in your body again. Because when change comes, you go through trauma, you go through shock, and essences of yourself leaves yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So if you use your senses, even hearing, I have a singing bowl, and I just like walk around my house just beating that singing bowl, and I have a shamanic drum. And the vibrations from these tools bring me back into my body and bring me back into a state of being present and whole again. And so taste even helps. I had to learn to put the chocolate down because the taste of the chocolate was really, really great. So I don't personally go and use taste all that much because I tend to gravitate to the taste of comfort food.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal experience. So if you can even, as a very basic, use all of your senses and have support. You can't always go through change and challenges alone. Have a tribe or a community or friends. Have support, people that have been through this with you before that can teach you this.
Yeah, so true. And I think what you said, and I know it's been key for me as well, again, we all go through challenges. It was bringing myself back into my body. That was a huge, huge part in the first place. Before then, I can maneuver or change perspective or, learn to overcome or transcend. When I am not in my body, I'm in my head, I'm floating, and it's really, really hard to, overcome it or find a solution from that space. So I think even like that, putting your hands in your heart and literally feeling, because again, energy flows where attention goes. Literally, it's dropping you in. Because again, even what's happening in our bodies when we're doing that, we're putting ourselves into a different state. We're changing our brainwaves, that we're not in the fight or flight. We're coming back more, settling into our body. So then the more creative part of our brain can activate again, so we can think of better solutions. Whereas when we're in the fight or flight, those solutions don't come. So it's really, again, it's often the simple techniques, but we don't give them enough credit sometimes until we actually do them and do them enough that then when you feel them, you're like, okay, this is really powerful. So again, it comes back to that practice.
Because when I studied mindfulness for children as well, and that's something I'm still going into, but I found a case of when you're going through the big changes and challenges, like I said, your body goes through a shock. And even some level of trauma, and essences of yourself leave yourself completely. And then a lot of us out there, we know the big techniques, and we know even the moderate techniques, like you need to tap more into your divine feminine because you need to come from a nurturing spot. But what I found in the more severe shock and changes and challenges was you go into virtually a childlike state, so you need to, this for me personally, I found help, and I'm finding it because I'm using this now with my clients more, I'm finding it's helping them more. I went into a childlike state of not feeling like I had any of the basics behind me. At all to support or hold me. So I one day took all of the children's books I've bought for when I train children, and I read all of them. And they were all about like inviting your emotions to tea.
Yeah.
Because of course you're so scared. You're shoving all that fear down and that anger. You've got to go through. We don't just grieve for the loss of a soul or loss of a person. We grieve through the loss of finances. We grieve through the loss of a job. We grieve so much. The grieving process is so present in our everyday life, and we have to allow this grieving process. And so we tend to push those emotions down. So I sat there and read about 10 or 12 books, and the only thing I could do was go through the absolute basics that you would teach a child. And they are so powerful when we keep it simple. And then when you find yourself, like you said, when you find yourself again, then you start progressing to the stuff that you knew and you know and that do work. But they can't work if you can't get the basics right.
Yeah. So true. But really, the simplicity is the key. And even a couple of weeks ago, I recorded a podcast even about that, and again, I always say as well, we don't know what we don't know. We're all in a process of learning. And if you cut yourself off from learning, you really can't expect to know either. And it is that going within, that self-discovery. But it's that thing again about emotions, like allowing them, like our emotions, we need to have a relationship with them. They're our own feedback system. Again, their energy, their vibration, a frequency, they're telling us where we're at. And even again, when an emotion comes up, the initial surge, they say, when that flush of biochemicals is going through our body, lasts 90 seconds. And that's something we just kind of need to roll with and like let the intensity kind of wash over us, and then we can, so that's why they say even walk away in the heat of a moment or take a few deep breaths. Just let that initial surge wash over and then come back and see, what way you can maneuver out of it. And again, it's not to say it might just happen once. It can happen lots of times, but it's being with it and allowing it, bringing it to tea, like you say in the child's book, sitting with it, just allowing it without the story, without engaging, without criticizing yourself or judging. When we allow, it's got something to teach us and it will dissipate. But when we continue to run and push it down and ignore, it'll build and build and build. And like you say, then, you mentioned even at work, then your boss just says something to you that's so insignificant. And next thing you just lose the plot or you're bawling your eyes out crying, which happens us all. And it's because we're constantly running and not acknowledging and not allowing ourselves. And again, it comes back to what you even mentioned at the start, having a relationship with ourselves. It is so crucial. It is the start of everything.
Because when we don't listen to our emotions and we're pushing them down, and, that's when we get ourselves into such a stress state because we're just pushing it and it's building up. And the next thing you're at a doctor like I was. And I was on antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills years back. And then, like I said, they wanted to put me on it again. That's when we land up at the doctors and they're like, we need to get you on meds. And so much of that could have been prevented. When I was doing this mindfulness for kids training, I was blown away. I wish I had that as a child, and my generation would never have grown up with that. And the generations before me, and even some of the generations after me, we would not have grown up with understanding. Yeah. If you have a tummy ache, that tummy ache is actually probably an emotion that has caused that tummy ache. Absolutely. So what is that emotion? Okay. And don't worry, it's okay to feel that emotion because, as we grow up now in the spiritual world, we believe, well, we have to be these angels of light and we're not authentic anymore. When they learn from such a young age that it is okay to feel this and how then to use techniques to regulate it. So the next time you get a tummy ache, you kind of know the difference between the emotions in your type of tummy ache, and you go and you do your breath work or your mindfulness stuff and you prevent it right there and then. And then the next thing you know, you don't even have that tummy ache as often.
Yeah.
Like everyone should know that.
I know. And again, I think it is changing. I think, and again, it's the times, I think, like everything, again, there's divine timing for everything. I think back then times were different and it wasn't the time for the awakening, but certainly now with life getting faster and faster and more hectic and more distractions, like our time hasn't changed.
The children being born.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, it's seen as, okay, yeah, well, we do need, to come back. I suppose because back in the day as well, we were more connected to the land or to ourselves because we didn't have all the distractions. Whereas now we're nearly afraid to be with ourselves because we're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, I'll pick up my phone and distract myself, or I'll talk to someone or turn on the TV because I just don't know how to be with me. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm meant to feel. And, that I think that's why there's definitely a shift happening. And people are needing those tools now, younger and younger. So they have them growing up, I think, anyway.
Or the likes of me that are using them now in their adult life.
Oh, absolutely. And myself included. Completely tuning into them now.
And I'm reading all these books and then going and teaching them to my adult clients. And I'm just like, you guys have got to read these books.
They're literally the basics of the mechanics of life and how the brain works and emotions. And, once you kind of learn them, you're like, oh my God. Yeah. So simple, but so powerful. But again, it's having that courage as well, like you've mentioned before, to explore and to kind of let go of some of the fears and the old paradigms and the old conditioning. I think that's more the issues as well, that we're told or sold a certain picture to be a certain way. Yes. And actually, I find it really funny that we're having this conversation today, just before we recorded even. Today's Friday the 13th. It'll be coming out in a few weeks' time, but it's... the 13th was always really symbolic for, which I hadn't known, for women in relation to their cycle and their moon cycles and everything. And women were known as the healers and the witches, but that was in a positive. But then, the patriarchy came and kind of quashed it and deemed it as mad, and witches were burnt at the stake and everything. But again, I think there's a resurgence of that. And it's, again, I know for me, it's connecting to that part and being like, oh God, no, it's not crazy. It's not insane. Like, the women have always been the healers and like that, had these gifts and intuition. And it's saying like, oh, it's okay to actually connect back into this, even in this modern world where it's kind of shunned. Again, I think it's changing.
It's so interesting you bring that up as well, because that was another thing that when it hit my journey, took me so by surprise. One of the other strings to my bow that I am is I'm a moon mother as well. And when that came to me, I was really surprised, because my energy as a whole is very, masculine energy. Being in the corporate world, I'm very much the doer, the goal setter. Yeah. And my whole life have had issues with my womb and my ovaries. So the beauty of when I met the first group of women when I trained to become a moon mother, and I really understood, like, when people would say to me, connect to your womb, I'd be like, what? Why? What are you on about? And it really took me on such a journey, like you were saying, like understanding those elements of femininity. And not just men, like men have the hara, which is behind their belly button, connecting to their power source. Mm-hmm. As women, it is incredible what we can do with the magic of our womb. We don't just create life, we can create so much. And I find it not only in Ireland, in other countries and clients I speak to, the lack of understanding of the magic of a woman's womb, of our menstrual cycle. I had the Marina coil for years. And so with that, but for medical conditions, and with that, I wasn't allowed to bleed. And, I think it was only 2 years ago I had it removed, because I managed to heal myself with other elements. I don't claim to, heal physicals. Mm-hmm. But again, pure magic and intent as well. The strength and power we have in our womb is incredible. And men, the strength and power you have in your hara, because I do this work on my fiance, is incredible. Yeah. And women, we work on our hearts, and we're like, why is my heart chakra not opening? I keep opening it and then it closes. And I was told this amazing thing by a medicine woman who's on the Chinese medicine woman side. And she said there's a meridian that runs from our heart to our womb. Mm. So if your heart is open but your womb is shut, that meridian shuts your heart. Mm. So you cannot, in effect, really get into your heart and fully heal that heart without working on the power of your womb as well. And I find that incredibly powerful.
Wow, I think that could be another podcast episode for sure, because that whole area fascinates me as well. Because like that, I was so disconnected. And Janine, like, I don't know you. I met you once. I don't know anything about your story. So many things you're saying, I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, even since the end of last year, even I just felt the moon was calling me like there was no tomorrow. I was always felt, and I was like, what the hell? I'd be looking up in the sky going, why is this calling me? And then I started reading into it and learning about it, and I was like, oh my God, it is totally connecting to the feminine, to our room, to creation. And and like that, my cycle and everything, I was like, oh my God, I was so oblivious like that. I lived in my head as well, very much in my masculine energy. I was completely cut off from my feminine. And I was like, no wonder the bloody moon is calling me now that I'm on this journey and I'm reconnecting. Again, it's just the whole conversation has been so fascinating. And what I would say to anyone, and after every conversation, is just, and even it's in the title, just get curious. Don't let the fear stop you. Like, there is so much magic to be found within us by connecting to ourselves, and whether it's the ancestors, higher selves, whatever, it's powerful. So any last messages you'd want to share? You've shared a lot, and especially lots of techniques and tools for people. What are even some of your daily techniques that you do? Because again, it's about being centered and aligned in the first place and in our bodies. Otherwise, we can't hear our messages. And I know that as well from experience, from living in my head for so long. So what are some of your daily practices?
Well, I'm no angel, as in I'm still a project manager running my blood. So yeah. I have to work hard. I have to work hard at it. So my daily routine would be, and I feel it if I don't do this, morning meditation. My morning meditation, even if you YouTube something that's got bringing in vitality, my morning meditation would be around deep breaths in, grounding myself, bringing myself back in my body. Yeah. It would include deep breaths into my heart. So when you breathe in, when you breathe out, you sigh. And that's a great technique to drop into your heart. Yeah. So I do a good few of those. Then I'd start my day with bringing in, oh my gosh, I love sunshine yellow because it's that vitality energy. So bring that, even bring it into your womb. Bring it in and spread it around your body. Get yourself full of that vitality energy. And then I like to practice a bit of gratitude. I know this sounds a lot, but this takes less than 5 minutes, by the way. And then I just practice.
It's much shorter than mine.
Because it's simple. I keep it simple. Yeah. And, I think of the things I'm grateful for the day as well. And I ask Archangel Michael for protection. I always ask for protection, and I get his dark blue cloak around me. So I start my day off like that. Now, in my house, because I work from home most of the time as well, I would then do more intensive African ceremonies to get the house clear. But that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. But even if you sage the area, I know you can't go to work in sage, but spray something, spray some peppermint or something that's just going to, lift the energy up. So I make sure wherever I am, I'm sitting in a high vibrational energy. And my routine would include, at the moment, I go to the gym 6:30 in the morning, and because I have to get that energy up, and I watch what I eat. So if you can take two things away, do a morning meditation with those basics in it. Watch what you eat. Be high vibrational. Don't expect to do it all in one go, but just even in one or two areas, start off slow and end your day with meditation as well. So end your day by clearing the clutter in your head. Again, go to YouTube and get Jason Stevenson. Oh my God, I love his meditations.
Yeah, he's got good ones.
He really does. Declutter your head. Plan your day out, as in like, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. So it's out of your head. Yeah. Declutter it. And then start drifting into a nice sleep. Oh, and set your intent for messages from your ancestors.
Powerful. I love it. And again, it's an invitation for people to explore, get curious, find what works for them. But it's the consistency, it's the small steps, it's the doing it, and it does change our vibration, and we change our vibration, we can change our life. So it is so, so powerful. And Janine, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing what other ways our paths will cross, and I wish you all the best in your work.
Thank you, and yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Also log on to www.karenmaloney.wellbeing.com and click podcasts for the full show notes and links.